And we are back with another episode of Dracula Daily. August 1st. Drifting to some terrible doom. Log of the Demeter. 1 August. 2 days of fog and not a sail sighted. Had hoped when in the English Channel to be able to signal for help or get in somewhere. Not having power to work sails, have to run before wind. Dare not lower, as could not raise them again. We seem to be drifting to some terrible doom. Mate now more demoralized than either of men. His stronger nature seems to have worked inwardly against himself. Men are beyond fear, working stolidly and patiently, with minds made up to worst. They are Russian, he Romanian. Mina Murray's Journal. 1 August. I came up here an hour ago with Lucy, and we had a most interesting talk with my old friend and the 2 others who always come and join him. He is evidently the Sir Oracle of them, and I should think he must have been, in his time, a most dictatorial person. He will not admit anything, and downfaces everybody. If he can't out-argue them, he bullies them and then takes their silence for agreement with his views. Lucy was looking sweetly pretty in her white lawn frock. She has got a beautiful color since she's been here. I noticed that the old men did not lose any time in coming up and sitting near her when we sat down. She is so sweet with old people. I think they all fell in love with her on the spot. Even my old man succumbed and did not contradict her, but gave me double share instead. I got him on the subject of legends, and he went off at once into some sort of a sermon. I must try to remember it and put it down. It be all fool talk, lock, stock, and barrel. That's what it be, and naught else. These bands and wafts and bogos and bargus and bogles and all anent them is only fit to set bairns and dizzy women a-beldering. They be naught but air-blibs. They and all grims and signs and warnings be all invented by parsons and ilsome book bodies and railway touters to skeer and scunner halflings, and to get folks to do some they don't other inclined to. Makes me ireful to think of 'em. Why, it's them that, not content with printing lies on paper and preaching 'em out of pulpits, does want to be cutting 'em on the tombstones. Look here all around you, and whate'er you will, all them stands holding up their heads as well as they can out of pride as they can't, simply tumbling down with the weight of the lies wrote on 'em. Here lies the body, or sacred to the memory, wrote on all of 'em, and yet nigh half of 'em there ben't no bodies at all, and the memories of 'em ben't cared a pinch of snuff about, much less sacred. Lies, all of 'em, none but lies of one kind and another. My God, but it'll be a quare scouterment day of judgment when they come tumbling up in their death sarks, all jooped together and trying to drag their tombstains with 'em to prove how good they was. Some of 'em trembling and dithering with their hands a dozen and slippery from lying in the sea that they can't even keep their grip on 'em. I could see from the old fellow's self-satisfied air and the way in which he looked round for the approval of his cronies that he was showing off, so I put in a word to keep him going. "Oh, Mr. Swales, you can't be serious. Surely these tombstones are not all wrong." "Yablins, there may be a poorish few not wrong, savin' where they make out the people too good, for there be folk that do think a balm-bowl be like the sea, if only it be their own. The whole thing be only lies. Now, look ye here. You come here a stranger, and you see this kirkgarth." I nodded, for I thought it better to assent, though I did not quite understand his dialect. I knew it had something to do with the church. He went on, "And you consait that all these stands be about foon that happen here, snod and snog." I assented again. "Then that be just where the lie comes in. Why, there be scores of these lay beds that be tomb as old Dun's back a box on Friday night." He nudged one of his companions, and they all laughed. "And Magog, how could they be otherwise? Look at this one, the aftest about the beer bank. Read it." I went over and read, "Edward Spinsley, master mariner, murdered by pirates off the coast of Andres, April, 1854, 8:30. When I came back, Mr. Swales went on. Who brought him home, I wonder, to hap him here? Murder off the coast of Andres, and you can say that his body lay under. Why, I can name you a dozen whose bones lie in the Greenland Sea above. He pointed northwards, or where the currents may have drifted 'em. There be the stains around you. You can, with your young eyes, read the small print that lies from here. This Braithwaite Lowry, I knew his father, lost in the Lively off Greenland in 20, or Andrew Woodhouse, drowned in the same seas in 1777, or John Paxton, drowned off at Cape Farewell a year later, or old John Rawlings, whose grandfather sailed with me, drowned in the Gulf of Finland in 50. Do you think that all these men will have to make a rush to Whitby when the trumpet sounds? I've me anthems about it. I tell you that when they got here they'd be jostling one another. That way it'd be out like the fight on the ice in the old days, when we'd be at one another from daylight to dark and trying to tie up our cuts by the light of the Aurora Borealis. This was evidently local pleasantry, for the old man cackled about it, and his cronies joined in with gusto. But, I said, surely you are not quite correct, for you start on the assumption that all these poor people, or their spirits, will have to take their tombstones with them on the Day of Judgment. Do you think that will really be necessary? Well, what else be they tombstones for? Answer me that, miss. To please their relatives, I suppose. To please the relatives, you suppose. This he said with intense scorn. How will it pleasure the relatives to know the lies wrote over 'em, and that everybody in the place knows that they be lies? He pointed to a stone at our feet, which had been laid down as a slab, on which the seat was rested, close to the edge of the cliff. Read the lies on that thruff-stain, he said. The letters were upside down to me from where I sat, but Lucy was more opposite to them, so she leant over and read. Sacred to the memory of George Cannon, who died in the hope of a glorious resurrection on July 29th, 1873, falling from the rocks at Kettleness. This tomb was erected by his sorrowing mother to her dearly beloved son. He was the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. Really, Mr. Swales, I don't see anything very funny in that. She spoke her comment very gravely and somewhat severely. You don't see aught funny. Ha! Ha! But that's because you don't gone the sorrowing mother was a hell-cat that hated him because he was a crude, a regular lamatory was, and he hated her so that he committed suicide in order she mightn't get an insurance she put on his life. He blew nigh the top of his head off with an old musket that they had for scaring the crows with. 'Twarn't for crows then, for it brought the clegs and the dops to him. That's the way he fell off the rocks. And as to hopes of a glorious resurrection, I've often heard him say myself that he hoped he'd go to hell, for his mother was so pious that she'd be sure to go to heaven, and he didn't want to addle where she was. Now isn't that stone at any rate? He hammered it with his stick as he spoke. A pack of lies, and won't they make Gabriel cackle when Geordie comes panting up the grease with the tombstone balanced on his hump, and asks it to be took as evidence? I did not know what to say, but Lucy turned the conversation as she said, rising up, "Oh, why did you tell us of this? It is my favourite seat, and I cannot leave it, and now I find I must go sitting on over the grave of a suicide." "That won't harm you, my pretty, and it may make poor Geordie gladsome to have such trim a lass sitting on his lap. That won't hurt you. Why, I've sat here off and on for nigh 20 years past, and it's done me no harm. Don't you fash about them as lies under ye, or that doesn't lie there either. It'll be time for you to be getting scared when you see the tombstones all run away with, and the place as bare as a stubble field. There's the clock, and I must gang. My service to you, ladies." And off he hobbled. Lucy and I sat a while, and it was all so beautiful before us that we took hands as we sat, and she told me all over again about Arthur and their coming marriage. That made me just a little heartsick, for I haven't heard from Jonathan for a whole month. The same day. I came up here alone, for I am very sad. There was no letter for me. I hope that there cannot be anything the matter with Jonathan. The clock has just struck 9. I see the lights scattered all over the town, sometimes in rows where the streets are, and sometimes singly. They run right up the Esk and die away in the curve of the valley. To my left the view is cut off by a black line of roof of the old house next the abbey. The sheep and lambs are bleating in the fields away behind me, and there's a clatter of a donkey's hooves up the paved road below. The band on the pier is playing a harsh waltz in good time, and further along the quay there's a Salvation Army meeting in a back street. Neither of the bands hears the other, but up here I hear and see them both. I wonder where Jonathan is, and if he is thinking of me. I wish he were here. Oh, poor dear. Poor Mina. I do wonder what's up with poor little Jonathan, and I too hope that he's okay. Now, if you would like to keep up with me and the other Dracula dailies as they come out, please feel free to subscribe and hit the little notification bell. In the meantime, I'll be here, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.